Hey guys, it's kind of off the cuff. I just want to thank you for all the support you've done on the last video. It was more views than I've ever seen in a while. I just want to let you guys know how thankful I am for you being here and that I've been trying to do YouTube for the past how many years now, since I was in middle school. I'm about to graduate college now, just trying different things, just trying to see what I like. I think I've really found what I like to do. So I hope you guys will stick along for the journey. And again, thank you so much for being here on that last video. It means a lot. Thank you. So imagine you have a laptop with a battery life of half a day. It has the power to keep up with other modern machines and is so efficient that some models don't even need a cooling fan. Chances are, if you're using a MacBook, you don't have to imagine that hard. Now, you clicked on the video, you seen the title, you seen the thumbnail, and you may be asking, what is ARM? I've never heard of ARM. Well, ARM, specifically the M chips within Apple's ecosystem, that's the M1, 2, 3, all the way to 4 now. Those are chips that are running the ARM-based architecture in their CPU rather than the x86 architecture. And that gives them specific advantages over your regular Intel or AMD processor. Before Apple released the M series chips, they were just using standard Intel like other manufacturers were. The latest Intel they released back in 2020, you can see that their single core performance is 1661. For more context here, CPUs have things called cores and threads. For the single core score, a higher score means better performance for tasks that only rely on a single thread. These tasks are like gaming or everyday programs such as Google Chrome or Discord, Notion, Steam, things like that. For multi-core, this is for optimization and things that use more than one core, such as multitasking tasks or software that needs those type of parallel processing, such as rendering or 3D modeling, things of that nature. A few months later, they released the M1 with its single core being 2363. Comparing those same devices, their multi-core score was 7754 to 8448 respectively. And that's a nice little spec bump for the first comparison, but going later on down the years, we get to the M3 chip and that's doing 3081 single core and it's doing 11,712 in this multi-core performance. That same M3 does all of this while getting 18 hours of battery life, while Intel machines, especially the Intel Mac that we were talking about, did 4 to 5 hours in battery life. The M series is proprietary to Apple devices, so that's great if you're on Mac OS, but what if you're on Windows machines? From 2020 up to 2024, we basically had to sit back and watch Apple and cry about it because we had no processor that can do what the M series could. But recently, the company Snapdragon, which is known for its mobile processors, had released their Snapdragon X CPUs, which is its first laptop CPU, and is also built on ARM for Windows machines. So the Snapdragon releases, and it's surprisingly fairly good from what I've seen. In multi-core scores, it beats out the M3 from Apple, and it has phenomenal battery life, the best battery life that we have ever seen out of Windows machines. Looking at the Samsung Snapdragon X Elite, we have 2718 for the single core, and the multi-core is 14,046, beating out the M3 multi-core here. But that doesn't mean that this chip doesn't have any issues or growing pains in its first generation. With ARM, it brought all these efficiency gains, but it also brought compatibility issues with Windows native apps. Because of ARM being in its infancy, there are certain drivers that just don't work that you have to wait for support on, and some software don't work at all, either due to support issues or emulation, which we'll touch on later. So if you're in school or you want to work off your laptop, you may need to check to see if that specific software that you're using will run on ARM. Say for example, you have a proctoring test that you need to do. Some proctoring programs may not run, and that's on the person that creates the software to update their software so it can run on ARM machine. If you want to make sure that your software works, I'll throw a link in the description so you can search your specific software and you'll see if it's compatible or not. I've personally checked for myself, and most of the software that I use will run on ARM, but the main issue that stopped me from getting an ARM laptop is because this compatibility issue also goes for gaming. There are a lot of games that don't work at all, especially games that use kernel level anti-cheat, such as Fortnite, Apex Legends, and many others. In my personal situation, I live about 2 hours away from campus, so every time I go home, I don't want to lug my entire desktop with me, so sometimes I'll just go ahead and take my laptop with me. It isn't the best at running games, like I'm not running 1440p 120 FPS, but it's playable enough for me to have fun while I'm home for a week or so. I've checked my Steam library and some of the games work, but I don't want to have the itch to play a certain game and I have to wait till I get back to my desktop. Even though I might not want to play that game 60 to 70% of the time, when I do, I want to play it. So I always like to have my options open, even if I'm not actively using those options. So that's about the main thing that's stopping me from hopping on the ARM train right now. And I'm sure these issues will be ironed out, it's just a matter of time. But there's one more key growing pain that ARM has, and that is emulation. While Snapdragon was creating their Snapdragon X chip, they knew that there were going to be compatibility issues with Windows machines, so they tried to get ahead of that. They did this by incorporating emulation. The easiest way to explain emulation is to imagine if you were a computer and you were pretending to be another computer, or you were pretending to be something you're not. So walk with me for a second. You're developing your own video editing program that is designed for x86 CPUs. You are trimming your video, you're cutting it up, you're adding sound, you're doing everything you do to edit your video. So you're getting ready to render your video, and depending on several factors, it'll change the time of how long it renders. But let's say it's gonna take 10 minutes for you to export this full video. If you were to use that same x86 based software on an ARM machine, that same video may take 15 minutes, it might take 18 minutes to render, because emulation takes resources to do and your computer has to account for that. The best case scenario for software on ARM is for that software to be built specifically for ARM, but that takes the proper incentives for developers to do, and time as well. So what do I, random person on YouTube, want these $1 million companies to do with ARM and their machines? To be honest with you guys, as a Windows user, I am extremely jealous of what Apple has. So if I had to propose something to be done, we all know Microsoft is Windows, right? And we all know that Windows is open for just about anybody to use as their operating system, as long as you pay. The key difference between Windows and Apple is that Apple has a very small amount of machines that macOS is on. Apple knows exactly what's inside those machines. They know the CPU, GPU, RAM, everything, so they can highly optimize their OS towards that specific machine, whether it be the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, whatever they have. With Windows, just about any manufacturer can put Windows on their machine. So you can have a very low-end computer that has Windows, and you can have a very high-end computer that has Windows. I would propose that Microsoft do the same thing that Apple is doing. I'm not talking about taking away Windows from other brands like HP, Dell, Acer. They can still all use Windows, that wouldn't change. But maybe they create a new subset of the Windows operating system, maybe call it Windows X or something along those lines. But me personally, I would want Windows X to have certain OS tweaks so it can run efficiently and as fast as possible on ARM-based CPUs. Now, I would hope it wouldn't be as expensive as Apple products, but I do want to see a highly catered Windows experience with hardware that is built specifically for Windows, and that hardware mixes with that OS in a very Apple-like way so we can have a true competitor. And maybe things like this won't even be necessary because Snapdragon will continue to improve their chip. Like I said, this is the first iteration and it's already doing as good as it's doing. But this is just something that's really been digging at me for a while. Why can't we have this sort of experience over here on Windows? But like I said, maybe things will change for the better, hopefully. Quick update, I was just leaving class and this popped up on my phone. Snapdragon PCs to get better gaming compatibility with updated Windows emulator. So it looked like things are going in the right direction, and hopefully in the next generation of the Snapdragon chip that will be in a better situation. This video will be null and void. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried to do something different with the timeline below. I wanted to make the selection more broad, maybe have a little bit of a less structured video unlike the last one. If you've seen the last video, I recommend you go watch it and let me know which style you prefer better. And remember to like and subscribe while you're here. Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.